Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to present an example of using additive manufacturing to produce a customized implant for a neurosurgical application. The case was a lady, 60 years old lady with a benign tumor growing from the dura mater and expanding the skull, producing a deformity. And the surgical objectives were to resect completely the lesion and to reconstruct the skull. The needs to accomplish these objectives are four. The first one is to make a definition of the limits of the lesions in a way that we do it from the imaging data, and this precise definition of the limits has to be available in the intraoperative setting and allow us to go through these limits precisely to cut completely the lesion. And the two others are that the reconstruction has to protect the brain from injuries and also to make a good shape in the head to have a good cosmetic result. We have the opportunity to work with Neuromate. Neuromate is a cranial robot system from Renishaw, and I have to emphasize that now there is a new research project underway to be able to perform the craniotomy by means of the robotic, with robotic assistance. This will be the definitive answer to precision in the cutting of a lesion. The design of the implant was performed by PDR. It's a industry based in the University of Cardiff that works with many surgeons in UK and has recently received a Queen's Award. Here in the picture you see Prince Charles when this happened. This technology, as you have been seen before, can be applied not only to cranial tumors, but cranial defects from head injuries or after surgery or other orbit and facial applications. The production of the definitive implant was made by Renishaw in UK. That is a company with a very strong point with metrology. Is able to measure with a very high precision any process in the industry, and also involving healthcare, as we mentioned, with the robot or with implants. How we made this case? First, we need to have a CT scan. The CT scan has to have many slices, very thin, to be able to have a 3D picture of the skull, and like this, to convert these DICOM images to STL files that can be worked with Mimics as a 3D model to project the guides and the implants. Here you see the deformity of the tumor in this patient. This is the 3D model already to see this deformity. When there is such a deformity, for us it's very difficult to make a manual construction of a cranioplasty because we have no reference in the operating room to give the implant the correct shape. Also, if you see the defect that we have to make in the surgery to resect the tumor, is another difficulty to give the correct shape of the implant when we do it manually, as we have done before. Well, we work together with these companies, as I explained before. We send the DICOM images. We explain the points where we like to cut the skull to perform the complete resection. After that, we have a first project from PDR, and we do a Skype call, and we find the little variation that we have to perform, and we tune the final project, and finally this project was built by Renishaw, and we get it to be sterilized and implanted in surgery. This is the package that they use to perform the design. This allows to make a mirror image from the healthy side of the skull to reproduce in the contralateral side to perform the definitive implant. The cutting guide. The cutting guide is very useful because, as I will explain, is the better way to assure that in the operative room we are able to do a complete resection of the tumor. We use the cutting guide to mark in the bone and be able to assure that any part of the tumor is inside the resection. Here you see the guide. The guide is conformal to the skull in a way that it fixes only in one position. It's not possible to fix it in a wrong position, and like that is better than to use navigation, because with navigation there is a GPS-based surgical tool. We can miss the way and choose a wrong way. With a guide is really impossible. This is the final implant. We choose to do several holes in the implant. This is for two reasons. One is to avoid accumulation of liquid, in this case blood, in the epidural space that could produce a complication, and also in the healing process to facilitate the growth of tissue through the holes that brings a harder fixation of the prosthesis in place. The manufacture is done with the machine that you see here in the Renishaw facility in Miskin, UK. It's a 3D printing machine, and the use of the titanium, medical grade titanium, to do the final product. They are able to finish the product in several ways. You can see here satin or polish finishing in the last. This is up to the user to choose one finishing or another. This is the build plate where the final implant is produced, and as you see, it's connected to the plate through thin pieces of titanium that finally are cut and polished to the final result. Here you see a picture that we can use, for instance, in navigation. And as I explained before, if you use the picture to navigate intraoperatively, you're in the hands of your ability, your manual ability to follow the pre-planned resection. When you use the guide that is obtained free from without any further charge, because it's a product during the manufacturing without any other charge, you are able to pre-plan the cutting of the skull and follow this cutting with very high precision in the operating room. You have also models if you like to have the models in the operating room, like this plastic model, or the cutting model. In the surgery, you use the guide. The guide obviously has to be sterilized, and we put it in the skull to mark the limits of the resection. And also here, the implant has to be sterilized. This means that we have to have the implant 1 or 2 days before the scheduled surgery. Now you will see some pictures of the surgery. Here you see the skin has been reflected to expose the bone, and you see the tumor growth on the right side. Here we put the guide. We mark outlining the guide with a high-speed drill. Like here you see, we have done a sort of marginal cutting in the bone to see how to have all the pre-planned cutting marked in the skull. And on the right side you have the piece of bone we take out freehand with high-speed drills. That is the standard way we perform craniotomies. In this case, the dura mater was infiltrated by tumor. We extirpated the dura mater, and we use a dura mater substitute to cover the brain. And after that, we put the definitive implant that is fixed with some small titanium screws, 1.5 millimeters thick screws. Here you can compare the symmetry of the skull with the implant in comparison with the previous deformity of the bone. Well, the final cosmetic result was very good, and the patient is happy with the result. We also were very happy, and we estimated a 30% decrease in operating time, because we have no loss of time doing manually the implant that we have already there, and neither planning the cutting of the skull, because it's pre-planned preoperatively, and the guide allow us to cut it directly the skull. There is a new development underway to be able to have the computer program available to surgeons to speed up all the process, and like that have a very quick product available for us. If we have the software to pre-plan the surgery, will be easier for us to do a better job, and also be able to have very quickly the input to the producing company, Renishaw in this case, to produce the definitive implant. This will decrease the time to have the implant available, and also with a decrease in the need to have knowledge in computer technologies, because there will be a definitive product that will be available to use by surgeons. There is an example of this program. We are able to define the boundaries of the resection step by step, and obviously to change it if it is necessary, making a test that if every piece is already inside the resection. We have the possibility to define splits of the definitive implant to be able to adapt more easily to the surface of the bone, make some tags in the implant to recognize the orientation or the name of the patient, etc. to define the holes that we like to have, and also the holes to implant the screws to fix the implant to the skull. Usually, we pre-plan a lot of holes to fix the implant, but at the end, only 4 or 5 screws are enough for the clinical use. Well, thank you very much.